The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
Did you hear that?
Hey, welcome to this week's Salmon Says. We're going to talk baseball once again, but this time not about trivia and facts and figures. We're going to talk about me and how I got interested in baseball at an early age after not liking any sports at all. This is the Salmon Says Podcast. So at 9 years old, I began doing Cub Scouts in third grade, and that continued on for a couple more years. Well, when I was 10 in fourth grade, I was doing Cub Scouts, and at school, I got this flyer sent home saying Little League Baseball tryouts. Now, up until this point, I'd only been to one sporting event my entire life that I remember. I mean, except for like a high school game or something. I've only been to one college event, no pros at this point. I was at a San Diego State football game because I was living in San Diego at the time. Marshall Faulk was playing, and Marshall Faulk's in the NFL Hall of Fame, okay? This is when he played college ball at San Diego State. He was an Aztec. Their quarterback at the time was Dan McGuire, who was Mark McGuire's brother. I think he got drafted by the Seahawks. Never heard of him again. Marshall Faulk went on to play for, a couple different teams in the NFL. Anyways, made the Hall of Fame. Anyways, so my first game and my first sporting experience with the public was not good. Got to that game. Somewhere in the first quarter, the lady behind me kicked her beer over, and it poured down my shirt. So I'm 9 years old, somewhere around there. And I'm sitting there in a beer-soaked shirt the rest of the game. She says, "Oh, I'm sorry," and never offered to buy me a shirt. My parents were not happy. So I'm sitting there with a beer-soaked shirt. So my first experience of sports fans was not a bright one. Anyways, at the age of 10, my parents used to watch the news in San Diego every night, and all the sports highlights was Tony Gwynn. The team wasn't that good in 1987, but he had a great year. He ended up batting .370. He had 56 stolen bases. So I kind of pay attention to it. I kind of got interested in that way through him. I was like, hey, this guy's pretty good. Now, at this point, I'd never thrown a baseball. I'm pretty sure I didn't even own a mitt. I knew nothing about the game, but got this flyer from home, sent home with me from school, and I thought, hey, this might be kind of fun. My parents were like, well, you're already doing scouts. And I said, okay, I'll just do both. And they said, well, what if there's, conflicting events? I was like, well, I'll have to pick one. So sometimes I pick the scouting event. Sometimes I pick the baseball game. I couldn't go to both all the time, but most of the time, they both worked out okay. So I ended up going up, signing up for baseball. 10 years old, you had to do these tryouts. Of course, like I said, I didn't know how to throw a ball. I didn't know how to do anything. So my mom taught me how to throw a ball. And I kind of had an idea how to throw a ball, but I'd never thrown a baseball. So parents went and found me a mitt, garage sale, something like that. Tried out. Of course, that was awful because I didn't know anything about the game. They put me on this team called, ironically enough, the Padres. Right? Because there was teams called the Astros and Indians and Reds and whatever else. A's and stuff like that. Yankees, I think there was. But I ended up being on the Padres, and I wore my tennis shoes. I didn't have cleats. I didn't have cleats the entire time I played Little League Baseball. All 6 years. I wore tennis shoes. I didn't wear cleats till I got to high school. I don't know why. I just didn't. So, yeah. First year, I don't remember much. They played me what I had to play was 2 innings and 1 at bat. So that's what they played me. The next year, I end up being on the Astros. And at that point, I'm out in the outfield, and I'm throwing sidearm. Well, to me, this is how baseball players throw. I see them in the baseball game. They're throwing sidearm when they're warming up. Infielders throw sidearm to make it across the diamond. So I thought that's how baseball players played. And before the game, my back was hurting. My shoulder was hurting. But nobody ever taught me different. They thought I was messing around. Okay, it wasn't until the third year of baseball that I learned, hey, this isn't how you throw a baseball, okay? I had a coach pull me aside. He goes, why do you throw sidearm? And I was like, I don't know. That's just who I've always thrown. He goes, does that hurt your arm? I'm like, yeah. Well, let's teach you how to throw. So he took me in the bullpen, and we have a game going on or something. And, of course, I wasn't starting. And he taught me to throw, bring my arm straight up over my shoulder and throw straight that way. Bring your arm straight back, full extension, and then come over like a windmill, over. Boy, then my arm was not hurting. It was more accurate throws. I could throw farther. And so the Little League we had in San Diego, I think it was like T-ball, caps, and then I was in minors. So Padres, Astros, Dodgers, I was in minors. Then I went to majors, senior minors, senior majors. Well, I maxed out at the minors at 12 years old. That's when I was on the Dodgers. If I'm 13, I'm too old to go to majors. So I went right from minors to senior minors, jumping up that way. So it was a big jump for me. Skip a whole level. Of course, couldn't hit up there either. I walked a lot, but I was really fast. I went on to the A's. And the A's were pretty good. We made the playoffs. The problem was we only had one pitcher on the team. We had the coach's kid could pitch if he needed to, but we had one guy named Nick, and he would pitch. We only had one game a week, and so you can only out so many innings, and so he'd pitch that game every week. and we would win because he was one of the best pitchers in the league. We got to playoffs, though. He had 2 nights in a row where he had to play. Well, Nick would pitch first night, and then Coach's kid pitched the second, and we didn't hit good, and he didn't pitch great, and so we lost. I think it was single elimination, if I remember right. Anyways, enough about that. I never pitched. I was always put in the outfield because I was not a great player, okay? So this is the Salmon Says Podcast. I'm talking baseball, my love of baseball. During this time, besides playing Little League myself, I started collecting baseball cards. Well, what boy in the 80s didn't have baseball cards, right? Even my brother collected, and he wasn't a baseball fan at all. But we used to, anytime we stopped at a gas station or something like that, most kids would go right to the candy aisle. We would go to the candy aisle and find the baseball cards, and we would buy a pack of baseball cards. I think they were 50 cents or something. And the gum in there was never good. We didn't care about the gum. We wanted the cards. And so eventually my parents just decide, hey, let's go to the big box store and buy them the complete sets, and they're not wasting all their money on baseball cards. So they would buy us a complete top set. And I think I have the 88, 90, 91, 92, and 93 top sets, something like that, from my parents, which is the cheapest of the sets. But, that's what they could afford, and I appreciate it. And I think I have most of those cards still. Anyways, which are worth nothing, but we'll get to that later. So collecting baseball cards, learning how to play the game. At this point in my Little League career, I was not hitting. I knew I wasn't hitting. So when I was on the Dodgers, before I go back to the A's, I learned how to bat left-handed. I was at my mom was a great batting practice pitcher, and she's pitching to me. My brother's out shagging in the outfield. And my mom says, okay, and as I get up there left-handed. Tony Gwynn was left-handed, my favorite player. My best friend was left-handed. My brother's left-handed. I was like, I can't do any worse. All right, took a couple practice swings, whatever. My brother's like, you're not going to hit anything. Mom throws one, I clobbered over my brother's head. Clear out there. She goes, from now on, you're batting left-handed. So for the rest of that year, I batted left-handed. I think when I came up to senior minors, I decided to do right and left, and I think I still only got one hit. But my thing was base stealing. I got on base, pretty good chance I'm going to steal second, one way or another. I was good at reading the pitcher. I was quick. I wasn't a good slider, so I usually went in standing up, which usually ticked off my coaches because I thought I was going to get clumped in the melon. Boom, hit in the head. But I had a helmet on. All right, I have a hard hit anyways. So anyways, the first year of senior minors, I played on the A's, and, I discovered that I was pretty quick. That was something early in baseball. I discovered that I was fast. That's the first time I ever really realized that I was a fast runner, was playing Little League baseball. I think maybe that second year. The Padres, I didn't play much. But on the second year when I played on the Astros, I decided, hey, I looked, and I was one of the quicker kids out there. And by the time I got to the Dodgers, I was one of the older kids in the league because most 12-year-olds had already moved up to majors, but I wasn't very good. But I was still faster than almost everybody. And then in senior minors, I was one of the faster guys in the leagues too. So I would try to get on base by walk. And then I played on the Angels my senior minor year again, and then I ended up playing senior majors when I was 15 because I was too old to play senior minors. So we'll talk about that here in a second as I end up being the player of the game on one game when we get right back here on the Salmon Says Podcast. Stick around.
While listening to Salmon Says Podcast, please listen in small doses because Salmon Says may not be for everyone. Side effects include dry mouth, nausea, vomiting, eye burning, sniffles, coughing, uncontrollable laughing, loss of money in bank account. Your car won't start, thinking you're a superhero. Salmon Says Podcast may not be for everyone. Other side effects include never turning off the podcast, stomach pains, helping old people cross the street, extreme happiness, being giddy, watching Lifetime television, and baking muffins. Check it with your doctor to see if Salmon Says is right for you.
Back to the Salmon Says Podcast. I would be Salmon. We're talking in my love of baseball and where it came from. So I didn't like sports until I was 10. I started playing Little League. By my 6th year of Little League, I ended up being the valuable player of one game. Okay, May 14th, 1993. I was 15 years old. It was tied. All right, we were tied in the bottom of the 7th, 8-8, us and the A's. I was on the Angels, and we were the home team. Somehow I got on first, probably via the walk, because I never hit the ball. So I'm standing on first base. There are 2 outs. Kid comes up, left-handed batter, I believe. Steven Shields was his name, I think. I'm pretty sure. He, I don't remember what the count was or how many pitches it took, but he hit the ball to the outfield. I think it was left center. I came around second. I'm rounding third. My coach knew I had wheels. In fact, that was my nickname in Little League, was Wheels. And I'm hauling booty around third, heading for home. Like I said, I didn't slide. I went in standing up, which was probably better in this case because the throw was close. It came after I got there. But if I would have slowed down, a little bit to slide, I probably would have been out or had at least to play at the plate. But running right through, they had no chance at me. I ran through, slowed down before I hit the fence on the other side. They knew they didn't get me, so they threw it back to second to try to get Steven out. If he would have been out, my run would have counted. It still would have been tied. We would have went to the top of the 8th. But instead, he was safe. I was safe. Game was over. We won 9-8. So Steven and I were the co-MVPs of the game. And the crowd went wild. Unless you're an A's fan, of course. But that was my shining moment in Little League. One time I made a diving catch in center field. I didn't play center field until I got like my 3rd year of baseball. They always put me in right, and I just sat out there going, please don't hit the ball to me. Please don't hit the ball to me. Please don't hit the ball to me. And most of the time that's what the coaches were saying, please don't hit the ball to him, because I couldn't catch, I couldn't throw. But when I start learning how to throw better, it was this coach named Skip I had on the Dodgers who taught me how to throw better. I started playing a little bit, I was playing right field, left field, then a little bit of center. So I got senior minors that put me in some center as well. And then I started playing Legion ball when I moved to the Midwest in high school. They didn't have a high school team at my high school, so they had American Legion. So some towns gathered together and make an American Legion team. And I was playing in the outfield there, right field, left field. I really didn't play much center that time. I was trying to do a little first base as well. I did learn some of that in Little League. I liked playing first base. I wanted to be an infielder. I played a little bit of second in Little League, some shortstop. I don't think I ever played third. But I was pretty much an outfielder. And then especially when they found out about my speed, and as my arm got better, they really wanted me in the outfield. So, and I said I never pitched. I had a coach that wanted me to be a catcher one time. I was like, I don't want to. That's too bad for my knees. So I never didn't do it. I would warm up a pitcher or something, but I wouldn't be a catcher. I was like, I don't want to do that. So first year of American Legion baseball in the Midwest didn't go so well. The coach was this guy who was a jerk. He was a blowhard. He was his biggest fan. He was very cocky. And I don't know how old the guy was, probably late 20s. His brother was on the team who was in high school, who was 2 grades below me. And I got along with his brother fine. His brother's friends were on the team. But he started them every single game. And yeah, they were probably better hitters than I was. I don't know. One guy was definitely not a better fielder than I was, nor runner. But they would start him because he could hit. And of course, he'd hit the ball and get on first and do nothing. And then I would come in and courtesy run for him or something like that. But my dad got mad one day after a game and went up to the coach and said, hey, how come you never put Josh in at first? Okay? The game was over. And coach says, well, because he's not as good as fielder. And dad says, that's horse hockey. That's the edited version of what he said. And so at this time in Legion baseball and central part of the United States, our field was grass infield. Little League, I always just had dirt infields. So the ball moves much faster. Well, playing on a grass infield, like the pros, takes a little bit getting used to. The ball rolls differently in the grass. And so I'd practice a little bit, but I really hadn't played very much at first. And Dad says, get out there. So I stood at first, and Coach went down to home, and he's start hitting, the first baseman some balls, and he fielded everything. He hit me some, I fielded everything perfectly. The way I was supposed to. I charged if I needed to charge it, made the play at home, made the play first. And I really showed that I could play first base. And anyways, him and Dad got in arguments. I was embarrassed, and I was kind of upset, too, that I didn't play as more than I should have, than I did. But anyways, I ended up not finishing that season out with them. I did come back the next year, move up a level, to the older kids, and I had a different coach, and that one I did finish the whole season. But again, at that level, I was used as a courtesy runner a lot. So in Legion baseball, you can, we had like a third baseman or an outfielder that was slow. He'd hit the ball a mile, he'd get to first base. I'd come out of steal second, steal third, whatever. But they didn't usually announce me because, I don't know, I was just courtesy runner, and I guess they didn't feel it was important to announce my name. So in the papers, it would read the guy I came and ran for, stole second and third. I'm like, no, that was me. But nonetheless, so I got to the next level, and I was practicing left field. First game of the year, coach puts me in right field. I'm like, okay, it's been a little while since I played right, but I'm fine. Ball comes out to me, and, it's hit probably halfway out to right field. I run in on it, grounder. Guy's on third. I crow hop. If you don't know what a crow hop is, look it up. Crow hop, gun it down to home. Same kid who was on the last team, who's coach, her brother was the coach, who was our catcher on this team as well. And he was a good catcher. And like I said, I got along with him okay. And I threw the ball a little to his right. So he had to go across his body, arm's length, grab the ball, come back, and tag the runner. But I got there so quickly that he had time to do that and apply the tag. It was a great tag. It was a good throw on me. We gunned the guy out at home. And I was charged up. My coach was charged up. Everybody on the team was charged up. So that was pretty cool. From there on, my confidence grew as an outfielder with my arm. And got a little more positive that way. At this time, I was still batting right and left-handed. I wasn't really hitting very much either way. I would connect and then line out or something like that. But nonetheless, I enjoyed playing the game, and I loved the game of baseball. Coming up in episode number 2, I tried out for a Major League Baseball team right here. Make sure and subscribe to the channel. This is the Salmon Says Podcast.